Hi, I'm Kat, and you're listening to Shut Up and Chat with Millie Manders.
Hi, and welcome back to episode 3 of Shut Up and Chat. Today I have Kat Brown with me. Hi, Kat. How you doing?
Hi, I'm okay. How are you doing? How's everyone?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Band is good. We got back from Manchester Punk Festival yesterday, so I'm pretty sure that is why my bags have handbags. Oh, yes. So for those of you listening or watching, Kat is currently our driver and merch person. But Kat does a lot more than that in the music industry. So I'm going to hand you straight over. And Kat, can you tell us what you do in the industry now, but give us your journey before that? Like, how did you get into driving and tour management? What led you to be interested in that in the first place? And all of the bits and bobs that you do now.
It's quite a weird story. So I grew up when I was like 7. I started playing piano, and I just loved music. I loved music theory. I played bass in a band when I was like 16, and I just started. And then I went to college and I did a BTEC playing bass. And when at college, I did more about like sort of industry stuff, and it kind of like intrigued me. And I ended up doing a course in BIM, music industry management, and during that, I never actually thought I wanted to tour. It was quite weird. I always was interested into like label sides and like being a manager of a band, and yeah, I don't know why. It was just like one of those focusing and touring. I was just a bit like, oh no, that sounds like awful traveling. It's so weird. I know, like I'm completely like flipped everything up. And I think it's because I never really traveled with my family or anything. And so I never thought of the type of different cultures you could see and how it's so relevant and like the similarities to like how you are yourselves and like your whereabouts. But so when I was in uni, I was an intern at a record label, Invader Records.
Amazing.
And so I was there for like a few years. I just became a label assistant. So I helped with a lot of like record store day stuff, and I used to do the one sheets to the distributors, and I sorted out like the lengths aside for the records as well.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really cool and stuff. But I always was like, I didn't really like to sit in front of a computer a bit. So then I thought about touring, and I started doing, whilst I was doing that as well, I started volunteering, doing lots of liaison at festivals. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This is awesome. And then I did like just start doing merch for bands across like in Bristol, because that's what I was living at the time. And I was getting into like live sound as well. I thought maybe I could do front of house, but I think it was never the main focus. It was one of this idea of like having that skill as well. And started doing merch a lot more. I was like one of the main people they called for like SWX in, and then pandemic happened. It was just like, what is going to even happen? What's going on?
Yeah,
you know, loads of people in that position. I'm just new, so who's going to like sort of employ me or something? And then I started doing merch a bit again, and then I broke my back, and then suddenly I went like full time thinking I'm going to try my best to tour. And then my friend just gave like, he was like really rooting for me because he knew like sort of my experience. And I got in conversation with him, and then I ended up tour managing a driving band in Europe and America for my first ever tour for the first time. Planned everything. And I hadn't driven in like a year and a half. I'd never driven in Europe. I've never been on like the Eurotunnel. I'd never booked a tour before, you know, and I did that, and I kind of got home and I was just like, I can do this. It was just like one of those weird feelings. I just didn't really know how to react.
I mean, your first tour managing, and you managed to book, did you book all the routing and everything for a European and an American tour?
We never had as American band I never met before, and we didn't have a day off. It was like full 3.5 weeks sort of thing. So there was like one day I was driving from Berlin to Calais, and just making sure there was like time efficient, everyone's time. And yeah, I think it's because like being thrown completely in the deep end, I'm quite an anxious person, and so when it's like all there, it helps me focus so much better. It's a weird format, like stress relaxes me.
So basically, if it's chaos, you're fine.
Yes. Like yeah, it was so crazy, and that it was just like how that happened, and just getting back and just being like, and then my next tour, I did merch, and it was like my next tour was a bus tour, like
as a sleeper. Do you mean like a sleeper bus?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, like considering that's your first tour as a merch person, to be suddenly on a sleeper bus, that must have been, I mean, first of all, quite daunting, but what an incredible thing to just have as your first experiences, suddenly be on a sleeper bus. So are you allowed to name drop? Who was this person?
Yeah, this was with Kiefer Sutherland. So that was also another thing. That was someone who's not just like big in, like, he was like relatively, you know, smaller in music, but everyone knows him as a A-list Hollywood celebrity and whatnot. So that was something else to deal with you know, fans and how locations would speak, what information you can and cannot give out and stuff.
Right. And how on earth did you, I mean, how did you fall into either of those? Like, that's because both of those tours, like, you don't just literally go wake up one day and go, do you know what, I'm going to be tour managing in Europe and America today. That's what I'm going to do, and find a band. So how did you do that? And then how did you get recommended? Because I'm assuming you got recommended for the Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
It was how did that work?
It was so when I was doing arts liaison so I did it at 2000 Trees, Arctangent, a few other festivals, but they were the main ones I worked at and like went to consistently as well. And someone who did the sort of the backline, it was just having friendships and just being like that genuine, intrigued person, and having like those talks with people and like that bond, that community, and realizing you're in the same boat and everyone working together.
Yeah.
So Nathan, who's Kiefer's manager as well, so he just like noticed I wanted to get to touring, because I was asking if anyone needed anyone for merch or driving or tour managing, and he just dropped me a message and he was like, hey, did you want to come along for a month and a half doing merch? And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be amazing. And I said, like, who's it for? And he said, Kiefer Sutherland. I was like, cool.
Amazing. Amazing. What an incredible job to just have land in your lap. I mean, It didn't, did it? Because I'm going to drop the N-word bomb, networking. Okay, I'm going to put that in very quickly before anybody jumps. The N-word in the music industry is networking, and people get really scared by that word because they think it's really business orientated, and it's not. You've already said it. You were making friends around all of the festivals. You were getting to know people, getting those relationships, and of course that then led you to have a relationship with this manager.
Yeah.
Like, I see you're keen, I see you're hardworking. Do you want to come and do this thing? And that's such a cool move, isn't it?
It's pretty cool. Like, yeah, most of my work seems to be from just it's completely being yourself and just being authentic, but also like really not assuming everyone's gonna be perfect, always just being there.
Yeah.
You know, people go through, like, especially someone on tour, people just like struggle a lot, or people aren't themselves, they don't have that own space, so they are a lot different. And just like being able to be there for someone and having that back, because you are a family, you know. Mm-hmm. it is a functioning machine, and just try and like always understand that someone might be angry, not necessarily at you, it's just how they're reacting at that time, and just being like paused with it, opposed to try and retaliate and whatnot.
So have you had quite a lot of, like, I mean, working with larger artists, there's obviously like a lot more pressure because you've got so much more money behind the production and the merchandise and the staffing and the equipment a lot of the time, and we know how stressful it is on a little van tour, right? But I can imagine that once you get up there, there's even more stresses to consider. So do you find that there's more or less kind of instances of that pressure overcooking and people snapping?
I think it's I've been very lucky with the teams I've been with. They all work so well together, and I guess when the stressful reactions, everyone knows each other's like how they react with stress.
Okay.
And that's just the most important thing. It's like trying to understand someone else's format of communication and try and understand like they're not necessarily being angry or what like that. And always just being there, is there something I can help with? Don't just be doing your own role. You know, is there something you can literally do to help? Even if it's getting a drink, a cup of tea, a biscuit, going to the shop or something, you know, or just holding something, giving a hand if you're able to, evidently, but just not, I'm only here for this, because that's not how it works. Like, you know,
it's nice to know that that's right at the top of the chain. I mean, obviously there are certain things that people are going to be like, no, this is my job role. I need you to let me do my job role. And if you don't, then problems are going to occur. But largely that is, I would say that's the same from the bottom of the chain right the way to the top, isn't it? You know, it's all about helping each other out and seeing if we can do that little bit more to make somebody else's life that little bit easier. Because someone, regardless of the day or health issues or anything else, someone on the day is going to have a little bit more stress than somebody else. And if there's anything that you can do to alleviate it, that's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. Because everyone's there for the same reason. You know?
Yeah.
And that's what I think people need to, you know, not people need to be reminded, but like that is always the central focus. Like, you know, that fuzzy feeling you get, it's like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, there must be times though that you've found where ultimately you are in a position where you feel like you want to punch people. And that might be because we're overtired, having been on the road for 20 days straight, or it might be that there is one or two particular people that you don't necessarily know very well who aren't that particularly compatible with your personality. Things like this happen, right? Personality and all of that kind of thing. We have to learn to deal with umpteen different types of personality when you're in an industry that relies on you not being a dick. But there must be days where you're just like, I feel murderous. How do you, as a tour manager, because you're dealing with so much, or as a person who's controlling thousands of pounds worth of merchandise, or, you know, a van and everybody's life is in your hands, how do you control that? What are your handy hints and tips?
Handy hints and
the blood boil at a low level.
I'm a talker. Like, I'm a talker most of the time. I can be silent. That's usually when I am just like, it's a pause I'm having. But I speak, and if I'm getting stressed, be like, if I start being shouted, it's like, hey, this has happened, I'm going to shout a bit. It's not directed, it's just how I get it out. You know, I'm always just really clear and upfront about how, as much as I can, about how I'm feeling and stuff like that. Which is probably annoying because I tell people everything. It's like, I go to the toilet and go in here because it's a habit. I just can't shake it. And it's also kind of maybe a safety thing with things, you know, trying to make sure if someone hears that, be aware. Because it's just easy to be able to say that. And I know it's annoying, but meh.
Honestly, I don't think it's annoying. Personally, I think everybody that works with me will know that my number one rule is honesty. And that's in every facet of my life. And if you can't be honest with me or take my honesty, we're probably not going to work together very long or have friendship very long or anything like that. And I think that's actually one of the most vital things you can have in a team member on a tour is absolute brutal honesty, because that way everybody's on the same page. Everyone's got their cards on the table, and it's like, okay, that person over there is anxious and they have asked for space. Let's leave them to their space and let them come back to us. That person over there is dealing with 4 different tasks and has asked for 2 other people to go over there and help with XYZ. Let's deal with that at the moment. And then there's a person in the back that just wants to be left alone for 10 minutes while they do their scales. You know, like knowing where everybody is and what they're doing and what their needs are actually makes a tour run so much smoother. And that does include saying, I'm going for a pee. Because if you're handling the merch desk, I can step in and do that. Or, you know, whatever it is, guitar tech is supposed to be restringing. Joe can step in and restring his own guitar if the other person needs to go off and do something, you know. So I think you're right in that. And I don't think anybody should be annoyed by complete honesty or oversharing, because actually oversharing helps in the long run, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I also feel like being able to be like so in-depthly honest about maybe sometimes things that are not the norm to speak about still in society or something.
Like periods?
I have like anxiety and I have mental health issues and also potentially have PMDD. So when like I'm on tour and especially being around, if it's majority men, it's really difficult to explain.
So guys, just as a trigger warning, men listening, we are about to talk about periods. But you should stay and you should hang out for the ride because you should know too. Thank you.
Please listen. And this is also how you can maybe help or like, you know, be an ally. And it's not telling you like, oh, you don't know this. It's just like, hey, this happened, you know. So usually a week or something before my periods, I kind of like go on this whole, like my emotions are completely up and down. And I can just like cry for no reason. But like when I do that, sometimes I know it's potentially PMDD. Other times I am unaware what my emotions are meaning. And I think that is just me. So if I know I'm due on or something during a tour, I've always just sort of explained like, hey, I have this thing. So if I suddenly become sort of like angry, just sort of like laugh with me or something like that, I try and explain things that could help, that if someone does notice that I am going through just up and down emotions, that how they're not shocked by it either or scared by it, and they're just aware that's just something that happens. And the best way, like if they don't want to have to do it, like, you know, it's not trying to make them have to deal with it, it's to make them aware of what happens and potential ways to help and stuff. And maybe like just being witness to it is like, because it can be like, you know, shocking, you know, someone's not used to it. So I don't expect someone to be instantly, you know, comforting me or expecting to be know perfectly how to react. It's just hey, this is what happens, have an awareness, trigger, you know, or warning, this is a thing. But it sucks that it's like everyone I've worked with have been amazing about it. And they're really good. And like, you know, sometimes people, it's always just like a thing. When I've worked with like the crew with Kiefer, because we have been away for like a month and a half. And
so it's going to happen. There's no way you're going to get around it. It's going to happen.
And it's been really great. Luckily, there's two other females on that tour. And so it was really nice having them as well.
Yeah. So just for people who might be completely ignorant, what does PMDD stand for?
I always forget it. So I think it is premenstrual. I know, like I hate it. It's like a PMS thing. I always get it wrong. Premenstrual dysphoric disorder. That's the one.
What?
Dysphoric disorder.
Dysphoric disorder. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know that that's what it was. I had a different idea of what it was. So premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So that's actually really interesting. And obviously there's so many people with wombs. We all have very different things that we have to deal with over our menstrual cycles. So PMDD is one of them. Obviously somebody who might have polycystic ovarian syndrome or anything like that, that can cause serious pains and all sorts of things. So us people with wombs can deal with things quite heavily on a tour. For myself, you know, you and George and Saf kind of last time we went on tour, actually, you were having to drive me to Sainsbury's because I was like a week and a half early, and let's say day one and day two are big. Day one and day two for me, they go big, they go hard. So Kat is like driving me to a Sainsbury's as early as possible the next day. I'm borrowing products from people the day before and, you know, buying period pants for the first time in Sainsbury's because I hadn't had a period for 7 years, basically.
Yeah.
So suddenly I'm standing in the aisle and my God, had it developed in 7 years. It was definitely smaller last time I had to look at those aisles. So I was pretty confused and it took me a while. So actually, it's nice to have girls on tour with you because then you've got a lot of understanding, or just people with wombs. Let's leave it at that. Other people who have periods who can understand what you're going through is actually so nice to have, isn't it?
It's just that extra sort of comfort because then It's just they know the sort of signs, and I think maybe it's just like not necessarily men, but like other people just so instantly think that person's being aggressive because they're attacking me, and it's not the vent way out. But again, we are so unaware when it happens, and sometimes I can realize at the time. It's very rare, but it's almost when it's happened, and it's kind of like, oh, I'm due, you know, and then it's like everything kind of makes sense. But I have so I'm on medication, but before, when I wasn't on medication before for it, there might be a trigger warning here potentially if about suicide. So like that is that PMDD, like that's how down that emotional spiral can be, and literally that feeling is just absolute horrible. So when like I didn't have my medication, luckily I wasn't taught. It was like when I was back at home, but just having that feeling, reminding myself, like imagine sort of that on tour, like how could I ever sort of try and explain it to someone, especially if I don't know what's happening. So giving sort of a pre-warning before to some people who aren't aware of stuff, if I definitely am potentially going to be on my period around the time, it's just something I always try and do.
And is this something that the medication has completely bypassed for you? Like, do you still sometimes have depression to that level before you come on your period, or is it like that medication has pretty much sorted it out to a point where it's more heavy mood swings than anything else?
It's not as severe as suicide or anything like that, luckily. It is sometimes, it can be like that down feeling, but I think maybe the medication has just like compressed
it. A bit like any antidepressant then, like when because I mean, I think pretty much everybody in my band has either been on or are on either anti-anxiety or antidepressant drugs, and it is that kind of feeling of like, if you look at a mountain range, it's a bit like the tops of the mountains have been flattened off, isn't it? So you still sort of have peaks and troughs, but they're more sort of leveled out and less scary than they were before. You kind of feel it, but in a more grounded way.
Yeah, 100%. Like, that's a great way of explaining it. I always think like compressing. I was like, is it gating or compressing?
Both, I guess. I guess it's like
gate just the top though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like taking the tops off the really bad peaks.
What's
of
the bottom one called?
Well, I think compression just does that, doesn't it, from both sides? Like, it lifts up the quiet parts and it gates the louder parts.
Totally nerding out now.
Like a nice band of volume, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like compressing the volume of your mood swings, basically, which really helps a lot when you're going through it. So I mean, we've talked quite a lot about periods. So,
sorry, I just realised.
But it was a great tangent, and I think it's actually really important that more people understand what us lot go through on a tour, whether it be as severe as PMDT or something like that, or just, you know, the amount of stress that we can go through just by needing products or a sudden coming on or whatever it is. So you actually do have osteoporosis as well, don't you? Is that because of your broken back?
It's like hereditary, so I had it in my bones supposedly anyway, and that was just like sort of reactions from it, I think.
So you're actually dealing with two conditions constantly on tour. So that must be like extra difficult for you to have, like, not only your back injury and your PMDD, but you've also got osteoporosis, and that causes quite a lot of arthritis pains and things like that, right?
Yeah, very stiffness and like just feeling like a bit fragile and whatnot.
So and you're driving constantly, you're lifting boxes, you're doing merch, you're having to stand up and bend down a lot when you're working on tour. How do you manage all of that and make sure that you're still fit and ready to do like a month and a half at a time or whatever it is that you're getting hired for? What are your coping mechanisms?
I know I am very stubborn, to be fair, but I do like try and think, and I'll be like, okay, I won't be able to sort of carry that. Is someone able to carry that for me? I always like try and make sure there's somewhere for me to sit down. Like you've been so very helpful with that as well. I always make sure you always seem to like go in before me, and then there's always somewhere so I can have a seat or something. That's so helpful. Just keeping busy is the main thing, I think, as well. I don't really know. And just like also trying to participate in the stretches.
Yes, stretches,
which is really helpful because like my normal focus is like quite bad. So again, that's another thing about touring and being in like the community of like a crew and a team. It's like I'm starting to do more stretches, which is more beneficial to me because someone else you've been doing it and everyone does it together, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, we like our ballerina stretches before going on.
Yeah,
you know. Well, I mean, as somebody that I don't have the level of injury again that you do. I can only imagine the type of pain management that you do, that George does, obviously, because she's got Ehlers-Danlos and things. But I obviously have hypermobility, which means that all of my joints are pretty rubbish. I've been penned by my doctor for early onset arthritis in the next 10 years. So we've got that in the bag.
Yay, teamwork.
Oh, lucky. So yeah, stretches do help. But I mean, surely like driving for like 6 to 10 hours in a day, like how does your back deal with that?
I don't really know. I think I'm just like, I think because I've been through so much pain with like injuring myself and stuff that I don't really notice. I'm just so used to having like a constant pain, which is like a manageable sort of thing. But just like stopping at services and stretching.
Okay.
Just sort of like, I don't know if you always see me, I'm always trying to like move around and do something.
Yeah.
Stay up and stuff. But yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, like that means that there are plenty of people out there that probably have little back problems and stuff, would love to be on tour, love to be doing merch or driving. Look at Kat, she can do it, you can do it as well.
Able to, and always just like, I am very stubborn, but everyone is there to help. Usually I haven't been on a tour where people have been sort of look up and down at you and not willing to help. No one's done that. I've been very, very lucky with everyone I've worked with. And I've had people tell me I'm very stubborn, and they're like, no, you can't take that. And so just like, yeah, your team cares and you're not a burden. That's a thing I think about a lot. I always just felt like I was a burden, but like, it's just like this reminder that you're not. Everyone's got something,
you know. Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to ask some of the woman questions now, because I think, you know, with the certainly 3 of my interviews so far. We're actually episode 4. I might record that bit again. Lol. So, yeah, like one of the things that I do want to talk to you about, because I think this is really important, is that you are a woman in what is considered a very man job, essentially. You know, as much as we hope that these stereotypes come about, driving a big ass van with 9 seats and a big booty in the back with muchos gear and merchandise, or managing a tour probably with majority male members of bands and crew and all that sort of thing. Unfortunately, the stigma is that these are man's jobs in the music industry, or at least if you say to somebody, my tour manager, the instant image in somebody's head is a guy.
Yeah.
You know, so do you come up against stigmatized ideas? Do you find that people are respectful of the fact that you are a woman doing the management or driving, for example? Have you come up against people sneering at you, bullying you on the road, talking to you like you're not as capable as you are? By the way, Kat is incredibly capable. She is a badass behind the wheel. Parking a 9-seater van is not easy. Queen. Carry on.
Definitely 100%. Some of the comments, one was when I was going through the border in Calais, and this guy who was like at the border in the booth, he was like, you let the woman drive, to all the other male band members. And I was like, yeah. and then realized, oh no, be a bit nicer because they might not let me through. So I had to go. I've had before when I was like, I went outside for a cigarette outside like a travel lodge, and just another guy was just like smoking out there, you know, and just like tried to spark up a conversation. He's like, what are you doing? He was like, oh, I'm on tour, I'm driving the band around. And he's like, so you're a groupie? And so I just do like I'm quite blunt and confident in a way of just like confrontation. I don't care if like I can do it because I'm not ever there to try and spark a fight. I'm always there to try and resolve. But yeah, when that guy said that to me, I was like, wow. And like did that loud, and then he was trying to speak to me and I just didn't respond. Then going back in, he's like, didn't mean to insult you. And I just went, wow, again. It's just really boring. Like, do you know what I mean? Oh, at petrol stations, they're like, how do you drive that? And I was like, with my hands, you know, just like, so I'm just quite like,
that you just know they would never in a million years see a guy walk in having driven a 9-seater into a petrol station and go, oh my God, like, how do you drive that? Like, how do you do it? Like,
and I always have it at, so if I'm tour managing, I always try and make it, you know, I'm emailing, my name's Kat, and it's usually quite obvious. But obviously when there might be a rep there or something and they haven't paid attention to like names, because sometimes it does change and it's not trying to like throw insult or blame to anyone. Yeah. But I have to go and introduce myself. I have to make the point. I've had it before where they've literally turned their back to me. We'd like in a group, say, you know, group of us arrive, they sort of come into the group, they sort of handshake with like, say, reps, male. Usually, again, it has happened with like maybe I'm not quite sure, but it's usually just that but they're standing literally directly in front of me or just kind of like looking really confused at me, or we're blatantly just come out of the van and like I'm sort of I'm literally telling the band like, let's do this, and still there's kind of like, for some reason, it's not that obvious I'm the tour manager or I'm the driver. I'm like trying to organize stuff.
Yeah,
and it's just a bit like, but I always try and do a build-ups before because I'm just so used to it. And it shouldn't be, but you know, and I'll just go straight like, hi, I'm Kat, and just be quite bold and confident because with that, I'm not trying to be aggressive. I'm just trying to be really straightforward and black and white instead of that extra thing of them, oh, it's a woman, you know, get over it. I'm a tour manager. I'm not a woman.
Yeah. It might, like, I guess then in that case, you have to make a choice to be assertive, like straight away.
100%.
Like, there's no pussyfooting around. You have to be assertive and make your presence known and make your status known immediately, don't you? In order to gain that respect from that person who hasn't even bothered to register your existence.
Yeah, you definitely have to be, and it's horrible to say, but like, again, I am an anxious person as well. So, but when I have that position, if I know like I'm sort of like in control of stuff and know how stuff to format, I am sort of that bold person because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it's not trying to be aggressive. It's just trying to get this whole like, where there's this extra thought about, oh, there's a woman here or something, and it's just like, no, let's just do this job. Come on, this is boring now.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Like, it's taken like, it does take a while to sort of be like that, but all you have to do is like, everyone is behind you as well. Your band's behind you. They believe in you. They wouldn't have you for any other reason. They've got your back too, you know.
Yeah, I think relying on the team is also key, isn't it? Like when you're in a situation where you know someone's being, not necessarily intentionally, but certainly through societal conditioning, they're being disrespectful of your position because they don't see why you should be holding it because you're not a guy. Relying on your team to have your back when you're standing there going, no, I am going to be assertive here and tell somebody exactly what I think if I need to. Not for the team to step in, but just to be there. and you know that you can go back to them and go,
Yeah.
this happened, guys. Yeah, super important. So do you feel that some of these would be your tips? Because what I'd really like to know at this point is if there are some women watching, some young girls, or even older women who are like at that point where they would really like to get into the music industry. They're good drivers, merch people, they know that they can manage people, they can do project management, and touring sounds like the bomb. What would your tips be for getting into the touring industry and also for being a woman in the touring industry?
I guess my lead up was through being artist liaison and doing merch. And just, I was always constantly at gigs in Bristol. And I was just like, if I like a band, I'm like, this band's awesome. You know, and speaking with other tour managers, that's a really good feel. They're always willing to give advice, like everyone is. And I remember my first tour. So my friend Connor Laws, shout out. He got me this first tour, and I was speaking with the band's manager, and they're like, we know this is your first time, we want everything to be awesome. And just communication is key. Even if you feel like you might be like letting someone down, like if you haven't done something, tell them. They're just asking. They're not, don't wait until delay communication just to be able to give something to them, like, oh, I've done this. Just be like, oh, I haven't done that yet, I can get that by then. And even if it's just basic communication, just keep that link going. That's nice. One of the main, that's a huge thing, because like when I was emailing the venues before, I was just trying to like put things straightforward, make it all clear, and also just make sure everyone had each other's contact details. And it's just having that communication and trying to stick to like the plan, be confident with it.
Yeah. What about so I've obviously done quite a lot of tour management, because from the ground up I had to start doing our routing, venue booking, all sorts of stuff. And if you don't have a booking agent, then sometimes the tour manager can be helping with that sort of thing, as well as collating things like tech specs from each venue or day sheets or whatever. You've got a lot of information to process, and you've got to keep tabs on who has and hasn't emailed you, in order to trace up the venues or promoters or whoever that haven't given you the information that you need. What would be a really good tip for organization to make sure that you're not missing things in terms of getting all of that information for people, collating it, putting it out there?
So I think on my first tour, I actually used this spreadsheet. So I also use Master Tour as well, which is an app for like others. Like, I don't know, you've probably used it before, have you?
No, I haven't.
It's quite spenny. It's like 40-60 quid a month, but loads of like touring parties use that instead of getting like books printed now. And it's really good because it says you can type in drives, hotels, there's recommendations and stuff. But if you don't have that, evidently that's a cost. That's a cost that people cannot afford. But what I did, I had a spreadsheet, and I basically just, all I started with was like what titles I needed of the location, the venue, like all the details, but spread out. So the location, the actual venue address, capacity, parking, green room, stuff like that, arrival time, venue opening time, venue curfew, backline and stuff like that. And so whilst I put all the information on a spreadsheet, I did like green and red color coding as well, because color coding is like my favorite thing to do, because I'm just a simple creature.
And then instantly got a visual of this person has given me the information, this person hasn't, basically.
Yeah. And then I'll try and sort of like reply to like, hey, we apologize, haven't had the information yet, if you could let us know as soon as possible. Or I might even suggest, like in the email, I'll suggest like the information, if it's like just a time or something. I'll just give more information on my side to see if that'll help their sorting out,
Right. Okay. So also be proactive and try and be thinking about things that the venue could already be giving you, but you're going back to them and saying, we already do this. Does this help the organization aspect?
Yeah.
That's really cool. All right, so just to round off, I would like to know, obviously we're number one. Obviously, what's your favorite tour you have ever been on, working on?
I do have to say, I think it was like the first Kiefer's tour. Like, it's just because I ended up playing kazoo on a pedalo, drinking wine and smoking a cigarette, doing the Welsh national anthem, and I don't think anything can take that memory away from me. And then Keith is there, like he said it was like one of his favorite memories, and then he's like, "But you did it for like 20 minutes," and I think that's just like a monumental moment. I think if I was like, "Yeah, I really love touring. I love it," you know.
Excellent.
But also, when we found the hot tub.
Oh wait, when we were in, where were we?
I remember we were in. It was
last autumn winter, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was when Ramona
really nice.
Like, it's a hot tub.
Yeah, I'd got some. It was a nice Airbnb anyway, and then we looked outside and there was a hot tub. And half of you went in there that evening, and then I think Elle got up and had a smoke and a hot tub before breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah, the things you find when you're touring and having to deal with 15 people in one accommodation. Hey, don't worry, everybody. There wasn't 15 people in the hot tub. I, for one, was not in there because I am not a party animal. I am really, really boring on tour and was in bed before 11.
I went in there.
So, yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for spending so much time with me today, Kat.
Well, I'm going to be spending more time with you tomorrow.
Yeah, you are. Kat's going to be on tour with us from tomorrow for the next 2 weeks, and we fucking love it. But thank you for sharing some of your stories and allowing me to get to know you better as an industry mogul queen. I love it. I love it.
Get the trophy now.
It's been a pleasure, and I shall see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Love you.